Hi everyone, I guess we are live now. Let me just cross check once and let me know if you can hear me. And if you're watching me on YouTube right now, then probably just let me know in one of the comments. I'm not going to read any of the comments because I am doing this live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, as well as I'll just start Clubhouse. So the primary platform for all these podcast related stuff will be mostly on Clubhouse. So I just wanted to give a heads up that from next session, you can say, or next podcast will come on only on Clubhouse, and the link is available in the description, so you can check it out. And I'm starting the room as well. So I have my phone with me where I am actually. So hi everyone, on Clubhouse I'm saying this, and even on YouTube and LinkedIn, if you are listening to me or watching me right now, because I'm live on three platforms. One is YouTube, second is LinkedIn, and third is Clubhouse, which is the primary platform for all these podcasts, which I have decided to do on a regular basis. And right now, I don't know how many people are listening, maybe on all the platforms, but if you are listening me on Clubhouse, it's perfect, because moving forward we will do everything on Clubhouse. If you want the link, then if you're hearing me on YouTube, then you can find the link in the description, or even on LinkedIn. If you are not finding anything, then you can search me on Clubhouse at the rate I am the PK, which is my Twitter username as well. So you can just check me on Twitter as well. Okay, so we will talk about Flutter versus React Native versus Swift UI versus Compose. And before I start, I just want to give you an idea that I'm not the master of all of these. I will just try to share my experience because I have tried all of them. I haven't tried React Native in very depth. And the reason is probably because I was never that much interested in, figuring out each and every part of it. I have been an Android developer initially, and then only I started Flutter. And in the middle of these two, I have also learned a little bit of iOS, and for kind of like 1 year or so, I have been doing a lot of I have been writing a lot of Swift code. So, and recently I have been trying Swift UI as well. So I have kind of, maybe you can say, I have tried all of these platform at least once. So I'll try to share my honest opinion about all of these. It can be Flutter, React Native, Swift UI, and Compose. So let's start. Finally, we will start, and I'll try to give you the all the ideas, all the sort of things which you should consider when you start your project. And I know it's a lot of confusion in the market because many people, if you go to LinkedIn, Twitter, many people are always talking about Flutter. Some people are always talking about React Native. Then Compose comes into the picture, Jetpack libraries, and then Swift UI. At the other hand, WWDC is happening, and a lot of excitement is there as well. So as a developer, we have to, like, not everyone is like me, or not everyone has that profile where they can just play with everything, right? You might have a job, you might have an interest. So primarily you can definitely focus on one thing, and then you will probably jump to something else. Let's say you will jump to, as a part-time kind of thing, or just for interest you will jump to something else, right? Let's say your primary job is Android app development, and then you choose Flutter as a secondary interest kind of thing. So that can happen, but none of you are probably going to try all these four platforms, right? So we'll start with getting started, right? And that is the most important part, where I think personally that it depends totally. One second, I'll just fix one thing. Okay, so I'll start with the starting point. Okay, we'll start from the student level, and then we will go to the professional level, and I'll try to complete my all of my kind of suggestions or discussion in 30 minutes or so. Okay, so we'll start with the student level. When you are a student, you have a lot of choices, not just these four, but more than these. And I am just totally gonna focus that you want to build mobile apps, right? So when you are doing your college project, it will be very I guess easy thing for you to go with something which can make your project as soon as possible, and you can just do it, right? So if you want from a job perspective, then I will suggest you to learn native platforms. Why I'm saying this? Because if you will look into the market, native platforms has more jobs and better jobs as compared to any cross platform framework. It can be Flutter, it can be React Native, but the thing is that they have less opportunities as compared to any other native platforms, right? Like native learning, like if you want to learn the pure Android app development or like pure iOS app development, they have definitely more jobs, and maybe someone will pay you very high for Flutter as and React Native as well, but that will be very limited number of companies or people who are going to do that. But most of the time you will be highly paid for native app development, because that's been in the market for most of the companies. Like the big companies are still mostly using native app development, or you can say Kotlin, Swift, or Objective C also probably, or Java as well. So all these things definitely matters. But if you are someone who is not looking from a job perspective, then probably you can pick like Flutter or React Native as well. Now there is a catch that React Native, when it comes to, I'll talk about all the other parts of it as well, but right now I'm just focusing on student level, where he does not know the technicality of any of these, just want to explore what's good for him or her. So React Native, if you have really good interest in web, right, like you are doing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all those kind of things, then there's a like very simple way for you. Just learn React Native along with React, because React will also create a lot of opportunities for you. Because again, when we talk about web, I guess React is one of the like I can say that uh, top famous framework in the market, which is even like if you compare the jobs of React, Angular, or Vue, I guess you will get more jobs in React in anywhere in any country, right? So the whole intention behind this idea is that, like, if you want to learn web, then only I would suggest to go with React Native. I'll talk about the pros and cons of all these platforms, but right now let's assume that you don't know any pros and cons of this, but you just want to get started. So if you're interested in web, go with React Native to make your mobile apps. Otherwise, just leave React Native at one side. Now if you're focusing on job as a college student, you just want to jump to any company, a good company. So there are two ways of identifying that. One is that you want to get placed in a FANG related company, where you can target Facebook, Amazon, Google, and all those companies. So probably you will not even care about any of these, and you will just focus on competitive programming or data structure and algorithms, because that's the way to go. But I am also considering that you are targeting specific domains. Let's say I want to become an Android app developer, I want to become an iOS app developer. And apart from that, as a student, don't try to become a cross platform app developer, because there will be very less learning as compared to what you will learn with this native app development. Because at the end, you have to remember that native app development is always going to be there, and there is no if and but when you focus on native app development. So now jumping to another point, like now you have moved from the student space to now you are probably working in a company or startup or something, or you are just exploring. So I'll talk about all the pros and cons of all of these, right? If you are someone who wants to like learn the, like if you have a product, for example, right, which is probably in your mind or in wireframes, or you just have created some sort of MVP somewhere, and now you want to do it in using the best resource, right, when whatever you have. So this is like, this is one part of it, right, having an idea and now thinking that what I should pick. Then the second thing should be that you will try to find out what is best suited for your project. That's the first thing. Second thing is that how many people are in there in your team, and maybe you are alone only, right? That's also a possibility. And third thing is that what are your skill level, like what are the skill of all the people, or or maybe like if there are only couple of people or you are just alone, then also what are your skills, current skills, right? If you have a skill of, let's say you have done programming in Java, C sharp, and like maybe C++, right? Then you will feel at home at, I guess, even with Java related, let's say Android app development, or Dart probably, and also I guess Swift and Kotlin are very similar, by the way. Just wanted to mention that if you know Swift, then picking up with Kotlin will not be very difficult. And similarly, if you know Kotlin, Swift will be very easy. Dart is a little bit different, not much, because all this programming language, all these modern languages are coming very closer to each other. That if you learn one language, it will be always very easy to learn another language. But my personal recommendation will be to focus on one language for now, at least when you are starting. So now let's go back, that you have an idea in your mind and you want to build a product. First of all, you have to identify that what is your main audience, right? If you are thinking that my product will be for Android and iOS, both of them, or you can just compromise with one of the platform, and if you feel that, okay, I am making a kind of an application which will anyway not going to stores, or which will be primarily for Android. Let's say you are making a blue light filter, for example, right? So it will be very different for Android, and the entire use case will be very different for iOS. So in that case, you don't have to even think, and just pick native app development and get your work done either on Android or on iOS, right? But if you have a more data centric kind of application where you feel that your UI should be very good, you have a lot of data which is coming. Let's say you are making an e-commerce application, you are making a kind of an application where there is a lot of sort of UIs, a lot of flow in data here and there. You have to do minor things, not normal things, like you have to some click pictures, like some pictures from, like picking pictures from gallery, showing it, showing location, doing all these basic things. Then probably any cross platform framework will work. So you can pick either Flutter or React Native. Also, because I'm talking about these four, it doesn't matter that others platforms are died, but I consider them as died. I don't i don't recommend at all anyone to use Ionic or Framework 7, Cordova, PhoneGap. None of them. These are all useless according to me. I don't think you will grow anyhow in these. I have done Xamarin as well, and I have liked some part of Xamarin, to be very honest, and it was very good. But in last couple of years or 3 years, I haven't seen Xamarin team to push Xamarin that much that they could initially. When Xamarin was not acquired by Microsoft, then it was doing really good. After that, it was for, like, it's my personal opinion that it hasn't done that good. Now they are talking about something called MAUI, which will be kind of something on the top of Xamarin. So I don't know how it will go, but yeah, I mean, I guess you have better options. So now, when you are right about your product, that what you want to choose, then like you don't know what to choose, but yeah, you are sure that now I am going to cross platform way. Then Flutter and React Native both are really good, because React Native has been also used by a lot of companies these days. Similarly, Flutter is also getting very much like it's getting popular, and a lot of people are jumping to Flutter, a lot of companies are jumping to Flutter, and because of very like promising kind of output which people have been getting with Flutter. So the basic difference between both of them is that one is totally for web developers, I would say, and one is for everyone, right? Why I'm saying that one is totally for web developers, because that's if you compare Flutter, Android, I'll call Jetpack, okay, Flutter, Jetpack, and SwiftUI. These three are very different than React Native, because if you compare Flutter, Android, and SwiftUI, these are very much similar in most of the, like the app building part. But on the other hand, React Native is little different, because that's more about writing kind of CSS, HTML kind of syntax you will write, and JavaScript itself. Like, many people will be there who loves JavaScript, and many people are there who hates JavaScript. And you can also use TypeScript, by the way, but that's a different domain itself, right? So my personal recommendation will be that only use React Native when you are already a web developer or you have a team of web developers. If that's not the case, don't consider React Native. The reason, now I'll talk about the reasons. um, from my experience, I felt that Flutter gives better performance as compared to React Native. And the worst con of React Native, which I felt, was for everything you have to add a third party library or plugin, which I never liked or enjoyed, right? I recently made a video on React Native, how to get started with React Native. And when I was creating that video, I was just trying with so many things. I liked Expo, by the way. If you have used that, it's a really good way to like hot reload and all those things are already there, but Expo makes it even easier to just deploy on your phones and use it right away. So what I felt with React Native is that a lot of dependency on third party plugins are there. And even for adding gradient, you have to add a third party package. And the packages are kind of very scattered. You really don't know which one you should pick. Personally, I didn't find a right way to choose the best package. And then also, you cannot like rely on like the community. Maybe I don't really know the React Native community much, so I cannot talk about it. But as a beginner, I was very very kind of confused that which package should I pick, or what are the best choices here. So React Native, in terms of packages, I didn't like it, right? On the other hand, Flutter like have pub.dev, which is good enough for most of the things, right? Like, if you see the basics of let's say you have to implement navigation, you have to implement some gradient and all those kind of things, you will find directly into the framework itself, the Flutter toolkit. And the best part about it is that the community has done a lot of work, and most of the main packages, let's say camera, maps, and all these things, are heavily like maintained by Googlers, or you can say the Flutter team. So that's always a positive sign. There are some drawbacks of Flutter as well. I'll talk about that, so don't worry. I am not gonna miss that. And So basically, plugins are gonna play a very important role. Why I'm saying this? Because it's all about plugins. When you have to do the UI part, I know you can do it either with Flutter or with React Native. But when it comes to you know like doing some kind of, let's say, hardware related things, right? You have to maybe access a particular sensor. You have to probably access something which is not directly a part of the UI or anything like that. So you have to rely on third party packages or plugins, or whatever is available, right, in the community, or somewhere. You will just Google it. So React Native sucks at that point. Even Flutter sucks at some of these, right? Some specific things are still missing with Flutter, but that's something which are very like, in most of the use cases you won't even feel it. But there might be some use cases where you can feel the difference, right? And when that happens, then you will try to just go with native app development. And then Jetpack Compose and this SwiftUI comes into the picture. And there is one more thing which I'll definitely mention, that I talked about the performance. Flutter has a very different way of doing things, and React Native has a very different way of doing things. React Native uses native components, where Flutter does not use any native components, but it creates its own native components. Like, it tries to copy the native components and it creates them. So it basically works like how game engine works, right? And that's the advantage of Flutter as well, right? Like, why? Because you don't have to worry about compatibility of any Android phone where this UI will not work. At the same time, I guess a lot of people will say that, oh no, I just wanted to have native controls different for Android, different for iOS. That's not going to happen. But the way Flutter works on the top of things, it makes it very easy to extend Flutter to any operating system, right? And the good part about Flutter is that Flutter is very much loosely coupled from any operating system. That means that you will hardly face any operating system related challenges just because of Flutter. Yes, when you are using plugins, you can definitely have those problems, but these problems can even be worse when it comes to React Native, right? So a lot of debate about Flutter and React Native. I'm still not saying which one is the best or worse, but yes, I think Flutter has some major advantages over React Native when it comes to as a beginner, or as probably someone who has not done a lot of app development, then you will feel at home at on like Flutter. And the learning curve, again a very important thing, learning curve of Flutter is really good, because I have been doing Flutter, I have been teaching Flutter, I have been talking in the community, and what I have found is that there are a lot of developers who has created really good stuff with Flutter, but I don't see those many things with any of other platforms. Even if you consider Jetpack, even if you consider SwiftUI, even if you consider React Native, you can just search on Google, YouTube, how much content you will find for all of them. But for Flutter, the reason is very simple, that Flutter feels at home. As a developer, you always want the speed when you want to develop something, you want to play with things, you want to experiment with things. Unfortunately, it was not very good with Android initially, but yes, Android has been getting better and better with time. That's a good thing. Now I'll touch one more thing which is very very important. And because we mostly talked about cross platform frameworks, we haven't touched Jetpack Compose, we haven't touched like Swift UI, but that's where main thing starts, right? Now there is one more part which personally I'll give credit to Flutter, that if you see how Flutter works, it's very easy to understand. Like if you go behind the scenes, right? If you go to the internals of let's say I just want to see how a particular thing is implemented. Let's say how a container is implemented, or how the framework behaves, how this material layer or some widget layer is working behind the scenes, right? So it's very easy to go and check everything. But I cannot say the same thing for all other platforms, because there is a lot of abstraction on the top of each other. Let's say I will take an example of Android. Android has grown a lot. As a new developer, you will feel that, oh, it's very easy, right? As a native developer who has been doing a lot of code, he only knows that what is the transition of Android in last few years, right? And now when you reach to a particular place where you are you are making an application, and now you are considering whether I can learn these new things which are happening fast or not, then you will feel that that the abstraction which Android team has created, like for Kotlin you get so many things today which you don't know how actually works behind the scenes, right? So what I mean is that, like when you look inside a framework or a library, it's very easy to look inside Flutter, but it's not very easy to look inside any other thing. And as a beginner developer, it will feel very easy for you when you just start with things. But when you want to go deep, it it will be very difficult for you, especially on Android. Same thing I can say with Swift UI as well, because I am not saying that you cannot go in and check things. You can definitely do that, but the internals of Flutter is very easy to understand as compared to any of them, which is my personal experience as well. Now coming to the way this declarative pattern works, right? Because all of these have jumped to declarative way of doing things. So there are various things which I'll start with versions first, right? Flutter is currently on version 2.1.1, right? Which means it is on a stable version already. That's what Google says, right? That's not what I am saying, that's what Google says. Which means they say that Flutter is very much stable. The reason is that Flutter as a framework itself, not talking about its its kind of dependency on the operating system, because it has very less dependency on the operating system. You can use Flutter with any of the operating system. So yeah, the version is, sorry, I miss like I said 2.1.1, it's 2.2.1, right? So so the dependency on operating system is very less with Flutter. That's why Flutter can be deployed to any platform. Like Flutter works on Android, on iOS, it works on web, it works on Raspberry Pi, it works on Fuchsia, it works on like Mac OS, Windows, everything, right? The reason is very much like simple, that it has a very loose coupling than anything else. You just plug the framework to anything and it works. So yeah, I mean, it's easy as compared to others. Definitely they cannot do that, right? So that's why they feel that it's stable enough. When it comes to React Native, it's still in the version is 0.64, if I remember correctly, the last one, which means that's still not stable according to Facebook, right? Or according to React Native team, which means that it can still have issues. A lot of issues will be there, and we don't consider it as a stable thing. But still, people are using in production. But who are those people who are using in production? They are mostly those companies which are already very big. And you know, same thing I can say with Flutter. But the thing is that what I mentioned, Flutter says that it is stable, React Native does not say it is stable. Well, that should not be a part of debate, but yes, just wanted to discuss about those points. Now when it comes to SwiftUI has SwiftUI is now on version 3, which is like the third iteration, which means that SwiftUI is getting very stable. But the problem here is that it's not very backward compatible. But you can say that's a problem, but you can also say that's not a problem. Why? Because Apple has been very good with, you know, the software upgrades. So if I say that in couple of years every phone will support iOS 15, kind of every phone will be upgraded to iOS 15, it won't be a lie, kind of, right? So basically what I mean is that SwiftUI is very much stable, and you can start for you know, using it. There might be some features which are still like upcoming, like in iOS 15 they have done, like with SwiftUI 3 they have done so many things, but those are not backward compatible, and people are fighting about it. So that's again a problem. Now coming to Jetpack Compose is also in beta, I guess, or alpha or beta, I guess. uh yeah, if I remember correctly. So last time when I checked, I guess they announced it is in beta. So uh so Jetpack Compose is still not ready for production. So if today you want to play with it, you can just play with it, you cannot go to production. So right now the only two things which are clearly very much capable for production level apps are either SwiftUI or Flutter. So one thing, now I'll make it very simple for you. I have said so many things and you might have got confused a lot. If you are a web developer or if you know web, then only choose React Native. That's first thing. Now let's talk about Flutter versus others. Flutter, Android, and SwiftUI. If you have to develop the app for iOS, Mac OS, iPad OS, that's your main audience. Then develop your apps in SwiftUI. There is one more case which I'll talk about, but why I am saying this, because SwiftUI have very good kind of things like not SwiftUI, but basically iOS app development gives you so many things very easily when it just comes to their own ecosystem, right? But when it comes to Flutter, Flutter has to do a lot of things for Android, a lot of things for iOS, a lot of things for other platforms, right? So it might not be always the best for like when you are targeting iPad OS, iOS, like iOS and iPad OS is same thing. So let's say iOS. So iOS and Mac OS can have different challenges, although both are still the same on Flutter side as well. Like they have lesser dependency, but still I would say that if your main audience is just iOS, then maybe Swift UI or iOS app development is a good use case. And also you should have a Mac. If you don't have a Mac, then you don't have a choice, right? You can just just stop working on iOS app development. Maybe you can choose Jetpack or Android app development, or you can just choose Flutter. Now, it's the same thing I can say for Android, that if you are a Kotlin fan, if you are a Java fan, or if you are someone whose main audience is just Android, right? You just really don't want to yeah, compromise with Android audience, and you don't even give a damn about iOS and anything else, then you know the answer. What is the right answer for that, right? Just get started with native Android app development. And now coming back to Flutter, if you have any other use case, and if you feel that your app should go on both platforms, right, Android as well, iOS as well, and maybe web in the future, or it doesn't matter, let's just talk about Android and iOS, because I am just talking about mobile app development. So you can choose Flutter, especially when you have a small team, especially when your developers, like when you have very less developers, you cannot spend a lot of money, and you are just making a product which can, you know which can become live in the market, right? And my only intention here is to explain you this thing, that when your apps become successful, when you start generating revenue, it doesn't matter what platform you are going to use. When you will have a large team, if you, even if you face any difficulty, you can just hire people, you can build any product with Android app development or iOS app development, like you can create your own team. But when you start, it's very important to understand what you have and what you want to build. So Flutter might be a really good choice for all those scenarios. And if you are someone who has a lot of interest in creating new wonderful things, then also Flutter is a really good choice. And native app development is always gonna be there. In fact, all of these four are gonna be there in the market, so choosing any of them will not be a wrong choice. So don't regret yourself if you see that I have chosen, let's say, React Native, but others are not doing it. Doesn't matter. How does it matter? If you are getting a job, if you are getting everything in return, then it doesn't matter, right? So don't go by how others are doing things, or how others are reacting to new stuffs happening here and there. Now there is one more point where I definitely want to talk about. So Flutter, you can definitely start with, and you can create anything with it, but, right, but like I'll choose Flutter for most of my cases because it works for me most of the time. But there is a use case where I don't recommend Flutter at all, and that use case when your app is totally dependent on hardware, when your app does not have a lot of let's say role of UI, UX, because you have to remember Flutter is majorly a UI framework. Flutter does not care about a lot of your hardware stuff, right? There are plugins, but let's say you have to make an AR related app, right, where you will use some kind of augmented reality, right? Now on Android there is a plugin for that, which is AR Core, right? AR Core is a library which people use on Android. But that's not the same thing on iOS. iOS, they have AR Kit. So you will probably find a plugin which kind of work as an interface between, both of them. Like it works, it uses AR Core for Android, it uses AR Kit for iOS, and that's your main, let's say that's the main idea of your business, right? Using AR. But that plugin will be a third party plugin, and that probably will have lot of things missing, or a lot of things not working. So your product will suffer in that case, right? So when you know the implementation anyway, even if you're using Flutter, then you have to write most of the code different for Android, different for iOS. Then what is the need of using Flutter, right? I understanding my point. So what I just want to say here is that when you are very much clear that my app is mostly dependent on hardware, where, or hardware, not hardware, let's say you are making an IoT product, right, where you don't even care how the UI looks, you don't even care about any data related stuff, you just care about the basics of the, the product which you are making, right? Like if there is sensor, it should work either on Android or iOS. It should work, right? It should not have any kind of issue, because that is the main part of your application. Like 70% of your app belongs to that part. Then choose native without even thinking twice. Choose native, go with native, because as I explained already, right, the more dependency are of your application is on the hardware side, the more you should move to that operating system level app development. Let's say if you want to do something very much specific to let's say IoT, for example, where you might have to access a lot of sensors. Maybe AR is also a very good example, where you have to like heavily use AR core, or even machine learning, right? Then maybe, I guess, native app development will give you a better kind of experience as a whole. And just remember, when you have to write your code twice, then there is no sense of using any cross platform framework. Only when you just feel that you will hardly write 20 to 30% of your code for both platforms, because Flutter allows you, even React Native allows you to write some part of your code in Java, Kotlin, Swift, or Objective C. So that these frameworks allow. But if that is more than 20 to 30%, then I won't recommend using either of them. Although I would say that with Flutter it is very easy to write platform level code. Like you can use something called platform channels, which makes it very easy for you to do that job. But then again, the point should be, am I doing it right? Like, am I doing it kind of most of the time, or just for some specific things? If I'm doing it most of the time, then my choice is wrong, right? And when you are building a product, always start with the small MVP kind of thing. Spend 1 week with by trying all of these platforms, whatever you think that might work for you. Let's say you have a very big feature in your application where you think that Flutter will work or not, right? So you can implement that feature in Flutter first, and then just check it out if that works, right? If it doesn't work, then just you can drop it. So spending 1 week will save a lot of months for you, right? So that first 1 week is very crucial when you are making kind of an MVP of your product, and you can try these different things and you can choose whatever working for you. So at the end, what I want to say is that in terms of, I guess, the way how they work, all of them have a very similar way of writing things. So by syntax wise, if you see, Flutter, Jetpack Compose, and SwiftUI all are kind of inspired from each other. So it's like even React Native, right? So all of them, if you learn one, it's very easy to learn other. It's very similar, right? But I would say that when you are learning Flutter, when you are learning React Native, then there will be a point in your life when you might have to learn and native app development as well. You might have to learn Kotlin as well. You might have to learn Swift as well for some of your things, or maybe you will hire someone else who knows these things for us for some specific implementations. So at the end, I think native app development is still gonna be something which you cannot just skip. You cannot just remove it from your life or from your application development career. So you should always consider that option if that's feasible for you. If not, then Flutter is really good, amazing. I can say you that mostly 70 to 80% of the application you can build with Flutter. Similarly, I guess someone who is very much experienced with React Native can say same thing about React Native. I am not sure because I haven't done that. So I'm not very confident about React Native in that scenario. There are few companies who are using it, but if that is Facebook, if that is some big giant, then it doesn't matter, because as a normal app developer, you might not have that kind of access which they have with the companies who are building that product, right? So at the end, I guess the major idea should be that you should choose the right platform depending on the use case which you are building for, right? And if you are a student, I already told you what you have to look for. But as a professional, you have to understand your product. You should look for the use cases. What are the different use cases which I want to do? And then you should choose the platform. And yes, don't forget to learn the new things, which are probably like, if you are learning more than one thing, then it's not a bad thing, right? If you are learning Flutter as well as, like, you don't have to switch. That's the thing. You don't have to switch. If you are an Android developer, you don't have to switch to Flutter. You can just learn Flutter, right, along with your native app development. That will always give you some benefit. If you are a Flutter developer, you can learn native Android app development as well. What's wrong with that, right? Yes, the primary thing which is a part of your job should be good, because that's what is giving you money, or that's what giving you like something in return, right? So that should always be your intention, that okay, I want to master this thing, or I want to do better with this. But you can also learn other things which will make you a better developer. You will learn a lot of things from here and there, right? So, and also there are a lot of people who are doing Java app development. They are not switching to Kotlin. I don't understand why you are not doing that. You should do that, because I mean, that's where the future lies, right? Android team after some time is not gonna support most of the Java related stuff. Like, most of their libraries will be written in Kotlin only, and the new things, whatever will come in, it will come in Kotlin. So why you are still sticking to Java, right? So you should be ready for these new things which will keep happening. It's actually very good, because as a developer, it makes your life easier. Also, this competition actually makes things better. So as you can see, Android development has become better in last few years. iOS app development has become better. Flutter was always better, and it's getting even better. And same thing I can say for React Native, probably. It must be getting better only. It's not becoming worse, I'm sure about that. So the whole point is, none of the choice is wrong. You just have to pick the right one for you. If someone else is happy with something else, it doesn't matter, you will be happy with that. So it should be your choice. And learning more than one platform is not gonna be any much difficult for you, right? So yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to discuss. It should be like, let's end this debate of this versus this. The topic is here just to like ask you to come and join. Otherwise, this versus tag I don't wanted to give to this title, because this is not about versus. I could say Flutter plus React Native plus Android app development, or Compose plus Swift UI. That all of these together makes a wonderful ecosystem, and learning any of these will not, there will be something which you will gain. You will not lose anything. And that should be the idea behind it. You should learn technology only till when, until it is actually making your life easier, or making you a better developer, or doing something good for you. But when you start feeling that it is just for the sake of learning, then don't learn it, right? Or maybe if you are not growing learning that technology, then it's useless. So I mean, the main idea is that all of them are growing. You will grow as well. You will learn from each other. And yes, choose the right one, whatever works for you. That's my way of looking into things. I have learned most of them just because I wanted to try whatever works for me. And just wanted to say one more thing, that one of my project is in native Android. Many of my projects are in Flutter, and some of my projects are even in iOS, like native Swift, right? So it's not like I am totally doing everything in one platform. I am actually using most of them, right? Depending on the what kind of product I'm making. For example, there was an app called Click to Chat. It just makes sense to have it on Android. It's not very useful on iOS. It will not do anything on iOS, right? It's just useless. So for that, I chose native app development. I developed that application in Kotlin. Like, I developed in Java, but I switched some code to Kotlin. It's not entirely in Kotlin yet, but yeah, most of the part is now in Kotlin. Similarly, I have other application which are kind of I'm like developing, which are in mostly in Flutter. and I'm liking it so far. I didn't face those kind of challenges which might be faced by some of the people, right? So there are always some cons here and there, like some plugins does not work, some other issue which can happen on native as well. It's not like native, like I remember there was a time when shared preferences was broken on Android. So it's not a new thing, there are things keep happening. This is tech industry, a lot of changes happens every day, a lot of new things will come. It's not like these are the four in the market, there will be new one coming maybe in near future itself, you will see a lot of them. So it's more about that you should adapt to what happening in the market, what's trending in the market. Like if you want a job, you should focus on something which will give you the job. And yeah, that's the most of it, right? You don't, if you want a job, you should look for the option, the best option which can give you a job. You should not just feel that, oh, these YouTubers are making videos in Flutter, but I'm not gonna get a job, so why I'll learn it. Although I don't believe in this idea that you will not get a job with either of them. All of them will definitely give you a job if you are good at these skills. So I think it is more like how you feel about yourself, or how you feel about your skills. So yeah, I mean, that's it. I hope you enjoyed. But before going away, I will do more this kind of podcast, but that will only happen on Clubhouse. So follow me on Clubhouse. And this was the first stream kind of, so that's why I'm doing it on other platforms as well, um, on LinkedIn, on Twitter as well. Not Twitter, I'm like, I'll post on Twitter about the things which I said, probably in a thread or something. But yes, if you like the content, let me know on Twitter, or maybe write in comments if you are on YouTube. And yes, follow me on Clubhouse, and we will do more podcast. I'll keep you updated. And thanks for joining. So yeah, I mean, I didn't take your question, I'll take questions some other day. But I hope I answered most of the questions which were in your mind before this conversation started. So thank you so much for joining. Bye bye, take care, good night. And yes, keep learning, keep doing whatever you like. And there is none of them is best, or none of them is worst. All of them are good at their own place. So with that, we will end it. So okay, thank you.